If you saw the signs, would you recognize them or look away? Hello everyone, it's Isabella DiFiore, Miss Statesville's Teen 2026 and the CEO and founder of Bella's Backpacks, and welcome back to episode 4 of Hope Grows Here. Today I have a very special guest with me. His name is Nathan, or you could call him Wheels. I call him Wheels. I like that better. I
like that better too.
Yeah, it's fun to say. It's really fun to say. But he is the president of the Guardians of the Children Mooresville chapter, and he is here to talk a little bit about what that means and what GOC is all about.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here, Bella. I'm excited.
You're welcome. Yes, I'm really excited too. I was, because April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, I really wanted one of my partners to be on the show with me today to talk a little bit about that and why it's so important to bring awareness about that. And I figured that he would be the perfect person to do that because he has been so supportive of my Bella's Backpacks and of the children that Guardians of the Children supports. So my first question is, what has been your proudest moment with Guardians of the Children?
You know, when I look back through, I've been with the organization for 8 years, and I look back through some of the work that we've done, and I think probably the thing that makes me the most proud from when I first started to now is just how receptive the community is of our organization. I think that when I first started, it was a smaller group and we weren't quite as interactive in the community as we are now. And it's really nice to go out into the public and be recognized for the work that we do, and to be accepted by the community for the work that we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, because community is a really huge part of it, I would say. I've had a lot of support as well with my Bella's Backpacks and people in the community wanting to learn more about what it is or learn more about what I do and what these children go through so they can also support them as well in any way that they can. So yeah, community is definitely a really big part of it, and I'm really glad that everyone has been so supportive of y'all as well.
Yeah, I think for small nonprofits like ours, even Bella's Backpacks, when you try to go out and make an impact in the community, having a support system there that kind of rallies around your mission, it makes a huge difference as far as how much of an impact you have.
Yeah, for sure. So the next question is, how long have you been part of Guardians of the Children?
Yeah, so like I said, I officially joined 8 years ago in April. So this is kind of my 8-year anniversary. I started kind of researching some nonprofits. My wife was really big into giving back to the community and nonprofit work. And she actually introduced me to the organization, and I met a couple of the members. I went to a few events. I helped out with a couple of things, and officially joined in April of 2018. So it's been a fun 8 years. I started out as what we call a child liaison, which is the first contact person for an abused child. And about 2 years in, I became president, and I've been president for 5.5-ish years now.
Yay!
Yeah.
That's really exciting. So, April's just, your anniversary month.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it happens to fall on National Child Abuse Awareness Month, which is really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. What's one story that represents the impact of this organization?
Wow. I don't think there's one specific story. I think every child's story is equally as important. So I think that the overall story of what Guardian stands for is really the most important thing. We're working with children who have been through the most traumatic events of their young lives, and we get kids from all different age ranges, from newborns to 17-year-olds. And I don't want to discount one child's story to lift up another one. So I think that each child that we work with is equally as important as the other. Some of them that stick out in my mind are obviously the first ones that we kind of took in and started to support when I first joined. And it was funny, we were down in Mooresville supporting another great nonprofit called Foster Love Adopt Repeat. They were doing a candlelight vigil in Liberty Park in Mooresville, and we get off the bike and we're walking towards the park, and one of the moms of the kids that we first adopted came up to me and gave me a big hug, and she said that they were taking prom photos for her son, which was one of the kids that we first took in when I first joined GOC, and it was really cool to see him get out of the car with a bow tie on, all dressed up for prom, and just to kind of see how far he's come in 8, 9, 10 years since we first took him in, and that story is really impactful to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How do you think these adverse childhood experiences affect how the child grows up, especially if they don't get that support?
Oh gosh. Every person is different, right? So every person reacts to trauma completely differently, but I think that any sort of trauma can negatively impact a child, especially if they're not supported. Mm-hmm. You can look at all the statistics and numbers in the world, but I think really the face-to-face is what wakes people up when they've gone through this type of thing. But the statistics show and studies show that children that have been abused and aren't supported have a much higher chance of becoming an abuser later on in life, because that's all they've ever known. Mm-hmm. They never had a positive impact to, show them that they can love, that they can care. All they know is hate, abuse, and trauma. So it's super important that their stories are heard, that they're supported, that they find the resources that they need to overcome that trauma. So, without that, who knows where they can go.
What are some warning signs that you would say people out in the community should look for?
It's really hard to identify child abuse, especially if you're not in the home and seeing it. Mm-hmm. We have a slide that we use when we do our presentations to other nonprofits or to the community or church groups, et cetera, et cetera. I kind of point out that when you look at characteristics that an abused child presents versus just what a normal teenager goes through puberty, it's really hard to distinguish between the two, because one of the things that are on there are like changes in behavior, acting out, inappropriate sexual behavior, lack of sleep, different attitudes. And these are all normal characteristics of a child growing into a teenager. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to identify that. And the thing that I always point out is conversation is the most important thing. If you don't talk to your kids or your grandkids or nieces or nephews, or if you're a teacher or a nurse and you're not having those conversations, you're never going to be able to really identify child abuse. And when a child comes to you and says that something has happened, you really have to listen to that story and then know how to react to it appropriately.
Mm-hmm. So how can we help an environment where every child feels safe or heard?
Again, it goes back to community, right? One of the things that Guardians really focuses on is awareness, signs of abuse, and then resources. We're a small volunteer-based nonprofit, and we get a lot of folks that reach out to us with problems that are way out of our realm of expertise. So having that community of other nonprofits or resources that we can refer them to really helps us with our mission. Organizations like Pharaoh's Parenting, if we have a mom who says, my child is going through this and I don't really know how to react to it, we're not licensed counselors, we're not psychiatrists, we don't know how to deal with that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. We do want to help and support these kids, but if it's outside of our expertise and we have that community of other nonprofits that we can rely on, that is really how we can make a bigger impact for the kids.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I really love the community that I have been surrounded with, especially with y'all. I mean, y'all have been such a big support. My Bella's Heart Ball that I had just a few weeks ago, y'all really helped me get that number up, the number that I raised, because I raised 6,000.
Yeah.
6,400 this year. Last year was 3,000.
Yeah.
So, and I think that y'all were a really big part of that, and the support that I'm getting from y'all has been tremendous. And so this has really been a great partnership for me, because I've gotten to see what other people out in the community have done for these children, what you guys have done, and then just be able to be there for each other and support y'all. Do y'all have any events coming up that anyone would want to attend?
Yeah, absolutely. April's always super busy for us. Like last weekend, we had 3 events that we went to as an organization. And every chapter that we have here in North Carolina tries to do something in the month of April. And I always tell people we have to stop having chapters in North Carolina because there's only so many weekends in April. But our event is actually April 25th. So it's going to be at the Iredell County Fairgrounds. It's going to start off as a ride. We always do a charity ride. It's called our CAPA ride, which is Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness ride. So what we try to do is kind of center around honoring the children that we've lost in North Carolina for the previous calendar year. And we do an honorary ride. So if you're a motorcycle rider and you're seeing this, the ride starts at Tilley Harley-Davidson. Registration is at 9 a.m. It will end at 10:30, and we'll head out on the ride. And then at the Iredell County Fairgrounds from 11 to 4 p.m., we're having our Guardians in the Park is what it's called. So a super fun event. It's free. Bring the kids out. And we have bounce houses, live music, a trackless train ride, craft vendors, food trucks, DJ, foam pit, all kinds of stuff. But it's all free to the public. And really, we just want folks to come out, introduce ourselves to the community, and have a fun, safe environment for kids to play and interact. But we have events all through the year. If you follow us on social media, Guardians of Children Mooresville chapter, or go to our website, www.gocmooresvillenc.com. All of our events are listed on our calendar there. So we do them throughout the year, but April's always the biggie.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So definitely go check out their website and their Instagram page, as well as attend their event on April 25th from 11 to 4 p.m. I will be there at the beginning of the event too. So they have they have a big tent set up where they will be stationed, and they'll have games and stuff for kids. I went last year, and it was really fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Even the big kids like us, we have a good time. So, it's really just, again, about bringing the community together and then honoring the children that we've lost here in North Carolina.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
And then I have an event coming up too. It's at the Dove House here in Statesville, North Carolina on May 1st from 5 to 7. And it's a community packing event where anyone out in the community brings one of each item that I put in my bag, and they're able to pack the bags themselves so they can see and experience, what I do with my Bell's backpacks, but then they can also take a tour of the Dove House. So we're going to do it in individual groups and sections during the event. So there's one group that will be packing, and then the other group will be touring, and then vice versa. So they can also get to know what these child advocacy centers do for the children, as well as actually see the facility that they are being helped in. At least one of them.
Yeah, a couple things to hit on there. We, for your Heart Ball Guardians, we gathered and packed 100 backpacks, and it was really eye-opening to just how much work goes into doing that. So I think if you're just being introduced to Bella's backpacks, or you're watching this for the first time and you want to learn more about what's involved with that, I think that's a really great event to open folks' eyes. It took us quite a while and several resources to gather enough stuff to do 100 backpacks, and then putting all that stuff in the bags. We're like, how does it go in here? Am I breaking things? And it's really neat to see the process. And then kind of in the back of your mind, you're thinking about, well, this is a lot of work, but what kind of an impact is this going to make on a child? Mm-hmm. So that's really great. And Dove House is amazing. I mean, it's so unique to have a facility like that where a child abuse victim can go in and do everything all under one roof. Mm-hmm. Because typically what happens with an abuse victim is they have to go in and do a forensic interview, and then meet with a detective, and then go talk to the DA, and then go do, all the medical exams, and you're going to all these different facilities and just reliving that trauma over and over and over and over. Whereas Dove House allows, all that to happen under one roof, and it makes it very easy for the child. And they're greeted with an amazing Bella backpack. So it's really neat, and we're so appreciative to have that in our community.
Yes, thank you. And I'm really appreciative of the work that y'all did to help pack the bags too, because it is very tiring, especially because it's really, for the most part, just me and my mom doing it. And if she's, she has a full-time job, she works for the school system, as well as she also dances too. So she has a full schedule too. So a lot of the times it's just me packing the bags, which can get very tiring. But that's also where I have to remember my why and remember, why am I doing this? Why did I choose to do this? Why is it so impactful on the children who receive these bags? And so that kind of just like helps me to keep, wanting to pack the bags, keep asking for people out in the community to help, keep finding resources so I can help these children and spread the word about why child abuse and neglect prevention is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. And something as simple as a bag filled with a couple simple goodies makes such a huge impact on these kids. They just went through the most traumatic thing in their life, and it may be the first simple, kind gesture they've ever had, and that little impact could, put their life on a different trajectory than what they're currently on. So
yeah, for sure.
Thank you for doing that work, because I know it's not easy, and I know it takes up a lot of your time, but the lives that you've impacted, I think, will go well beyond what you can comprehend.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely the work that it does very much outweighs the effort, because I still have friends that have to go to the Dove House and that have gotten a bag. And to know someone personally that has gone through that, and that has to be able to see the impact that I've made, just even if it's the slightest bit of impact on their life, especially because I am friends with them, or they're, they feel like family to me. And then to be able to see how I've been able to help them, not just outside of their situation, but also inside their situation, unknowingly being able to help, then that has really also helped me a lot to be like, I really want this to continue to grow, and I want it to continue to help as many kids as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard, right? Because obviously we want to impact all of them in some way, shape, or form. And, when you look at statistics, one of the things that stuck out in my mind over the last 8 years of working with abuse victims is the statistics typically only get worse, right? Because the population grows and statistics don't change, and it's kind of heartbreaking. But when you look at like 3.5 million cases of child abuse are reported every year and things like that, it's like, how do you get ahead of that? And I think the work that you're doing through Bella's Backpacks and the work that we do through Guardians and all these other nonprofits that work with kids, if we can, interrupt that repetitive cycle of abuse in a home and bring in some positivity, we can kind of negate and stop abuse from furthering into different generations. So, we have to keep vigilant and keep continuing to work and not ignore the statistics, but, don't let them overwhelm you.
Yeah, like don't let the statistics define the work that you do.
Right.
Because every little bit helps in some way. And also, we were actually talking about this in my American history class yesterday about all the current events that are going on right now, and just how society is, going into a little bit of a recession recently, and that can also impact, low-income families or families that don't have the proper resources to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle, and that can really affect the parents as well, and then as well as the kids, because they're seeing how much the family is struggling, and then that can also lead to abuse and stuff like that. So really not letting the statistic make you worry about if you're doing enough, because every little bit counts.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit older than you are, so I remember a time in history where social media didn't exist, and I think that kind of propels some of the negativity that we're introduced to every day. I think if I remember back to my childhood, like I knew if there was something bad in my home or my immediate friend group or family, but I wasn't bombarded with it on a global scale like we are today. And I think we kind of tend to focus on the negative versus the positive. And unless you like seek out the positive stuff that's out there, it's really easy to focus only on the negative. So it's hard for the current generation and generations coming up. And I think there has to be some sort of swing in how we seek information and the information that we're introduced to on a daily basis, if we want to kind of maintain a more positive lifestyle.
Yeah, it really is. Because, I mean, you get out of life what you're looking for in life. Like, if you're always focusing on the positive, or if you're always seeing positive, then that's what you're going to receive. But if you always focus on the negative or look for the negative, then that's what you're going to receive. Especially, again, with social media, it's really easy to find a lot of that negative side of the world and side of whatever's going on. So, which is why organizations such as Guardians of the Children or the Dove House or others that support children in these types of situations, or even just support children in general and their families, that's a positive that this world needs to see more of, and that I think will continue to make such a great impact. Yeah.
And if you're going through a situation such as child abuse or anything really, and you're seeking resources, there's tons of them out there. And a lot of them are free. You know, that's what nonprofits do. We try to raise funds and get grants and seek donorship so that we can do this work and offer it free to the folks that need it. And if you're not, like I said, you're not looking for the positivity, then you're never going to find it. So it takes a little bit of work, but there are resources available to folks, and you just really have to look for it.
Yeah. One resource that I use a lot to get a lot of my information from is Positive Childhood Alliance. Like, their website is one resource that I've always gone back to for information, especially during Child Abuse Prevention Month. They have a toolkit that you can use to post about on social media to inform people about this month and why it's so important and what you can do every day to make a positive impact.
Yeah. I think, Child Abuse Prevention Month, the month of April, it kind of spotlights this, but child abuse happens all the time. It doesn't care if it's raining, if it's sunny, if it's a Tuesday or a Friday, or if you have a ton of money in your household or you're very low income. It happens to everybody, and that's really the issue with it. And that's why we have to kind of stay vigilant on making the public aware to that, the fact that it is a problem. And one of the other really big statistics that is really heart-wrenching to me is that only 1 out of 3 child abuse cases get reported before the child reaches adulthood. So you look at the statistic, 3.5 million cases reported every year, but only 1 of 3 victims are actually getting their cases reported. So there's, an exponentially larger amount of children whose stories aren't being heard. And unless we sit down and actually talk about it and provide resources to these kids, they're going to grow up, without having any type of support system. So, for the month of April, it's great to spotlight it, but our work is 365, 24 hours a day, making sure that the public is aware that child abuse is an issue.
Yeah, so that's really great that there's so many resources to, highlight that, not highlight it, but, bring awareness to that, because it's not just in the month of April, it's all year round, like you're saying, which is why I'm really glad that there are so many organizations that help with that. But with that being said, thank you so much for being on my podcast, and you did an amazing job.
My pleasure.
Yes. So just make sure you stay curious, stay positive, and make sure you keep hope in your heart. Bye.